This content is not suitable for children and may contain depictions of violence.
Hi, I'm your host Cambo. Grab a beer, pull up a deck chair. This is True Crime Island, another true crime podcast. So Islanders, hope you're all well. Sorry for the week off, but every now and then you need a break. And this week's case, we've got one that shocked the nation. We go to Melbourne during the 2018 Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Now it's here that 22-year-old Eurydice Dixon, an aspiring comedian who performed regularly on the Melbourne comedy circuit, well, she had a gig at the Highlander Club in Highlander Lane, and that's right in the centre of the city. So tonight I'll be reading from court records, and as usual, they will be edited for clarity and flow. Also, we've got the Australian, abc.net.au, SBS, the Gladstone Observer, our photo from Christopher Morris, and also a photo from the A Chronicle of Gastronomy.com website. And there is a major trigger warning on this one, especially for people who know the case. So, as I mentioned, we go to sunny Melbourne. And speaking of Melbourne, almost a year ago, I think it was about a year ago, I was down that way for True Crime Island's 3rd birthday celebration with a bunch of listeners and podcasters, and how things change in a year with all this lockdown shit going on. So I guess what we should be saying is happy birthday, True Crime Island, and to all you Islanders, 4 years old. So, as I said, tonight's case deals with the rape and murder of Eurydice Dixon, who was brutally attacked after leaving the Highlander Club, where she was doing a gig for the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Eurydice was born on the 10th of November 1995 in Melbourne, and when she was just 7 years old, her mother, Karen Walters, was found dead in a Brunswick shopping centre. Now, Karen had battled heroin addiction for 10 years, and Karen's partner, Jeremy Dixon, was described as an anarchist, lawyer and political activist, and he was left to raise Eurydice and her younger brother on his own. Eurydice lived with her father and brother in a housing commission unit in Parkville, a northern suburb of Melbourne. Comedian Kieran Butler told the Australian newspaper about the first time he saw Eurydice perform stand-up. It was at a little club in Richmond, and she'd never tried comedy before, and he ended up becoming her mentor. She was young, like 19, and she was talking about subjects that nobody talks about when they're 19. She had a fucking hard time growing up. By her own admission, she was a strange sort of unit, and so she got bullied, and she had a tough life at home. There's been tragedy in her past. Eurydice's sister, Polly Cotton, she described her as having lived an honourable life. She was gutsy and determined and clever, and when I think of her, I feel proud and inspired. So, Eurydice was starting to make it with her comedy routines, and she could be seen at the Highlander Club in Highlander Lane, and that's just near the Melbourne Aquarium and the intersection of King and Flinders Street. She had a steady Tuesday night gig there and could also be seen at other venues around the city with her social justice-inspired comedy routine. It was a Tuesday night, June the 12th, that Eurydice had a gig at the Highlander. She was one of 4 comedians who were scheduled to perform there. At 8 p.m, she entered the upstairs function room of the club to prepare for her performance. She was met there by her boyfriend, Tony Magnuson, and Eurydice went on stage at about 8:50 p.m, and her set lasted for 10 minutes. At 10:20 p.m, after all the performances had concluded, she and Tony met with other friends and talked for about 10 minutes before they left the club. Eurydice and Tony walked east from the Highlander Lane on Flinders Street towards the Flinders Street railway station. They walked to the corner of Swanston Street and Flinders Street, crossed over the road and waited there for Tony's southbound tram. At 11:05 p.m, Tony caught a tram towards St Kilda Road. Eurydice crossed the road and momentarily entered the station before cutting through it towards Flinders Street and Swanson Street intersection. And I'll flash the map up every now and then on here. Now it's here that 11:08 p.m, 19-year-old James Todd noticed Eurydice Dixon. James Todd lived in Broadmeadows, and that's about 16 kilometres north of Melbourne's central business district. He lived there with his parents and two brothers. Now, Todd had behavioural difficulties at home and particularly at school, where he had a history of being disruptive in class. Because of this, he had to change school in his primary education, and subsequently he was expelled from secondary college in 2012 when he was in Year 8. He then attended an alternative school for young people with difficulties. In February 2013, Dr. C.N. Hughes, a consultant paediatrician, examined Todd after he'd been expelled from secondary college. She considered that he had good intelligence, but that he had Asperger's disorder and that his behaviour and emotional levels were not equivalent to his intellectual levels. Now, due to problems that he experienced at the school for young people with difficulties, he didn't complete Year 9. In September 2015, Todd was referred to a psychologist, Dr. Rhianne Coram, for psychological therapy. During the following year, Dr. Coram noticed that Todd engaged well in the treatment sessions that were aimed at developing his ability to regulate his mood, particularly his anger and frustration. She considered that Todd was quite insightful in relation to the nature and management of his problems. Well, not everyone can get it right, can they? Todd then attended the Melbourne Academy in order to obtain his Year 10 equivalence. After having completed Year 10, Todd was undertaking a hospitality, employment and training program at the Hester Hornbrook Academy in Prahran. Now, on the 12th of June, he finished training at the academy at about 3 p.m. With three of his mates from the academy, Todd caught a train from Prahran to Melbourne. After he arrived in the city, he walked with his friends to Batman Park, where they all drank a bottle of vodka, a bottle of cider and smoked some weed. At about 8:30 p.m, Todd and two of his friends went to Southern Cross Railway Station, which is the one station west of Flinders Street Station. Now, Todd bought a bottle of Jim Beam whiskey and cola and caught a Broadmeadows-bound train with one of his friends. Now, Todd exited the train at Newmarket and sometime later returned alone by train to Flinders Street Railway Station, where he arrived at 10:25 p.m. So, just by some awful coincidence, James Todd and Eurydice Dixon are in the same place at the same time. Now, it's here that Todd noticed Eurydice. He loitered near a construction area as she walked past him to the pedestrian crossing at the intersection of Flinders Street and Swanson Street. At 11:08 p.m, she commenced to cross Flinders Street. Now, once she was halfway across the intersection, Todd began to walk in the same direction as her. Eurydice then walked north along Swanson Street on the western side of the road, and as she did so, Todd followed behind her. As he approached Flinders Lane, he overtook her, sat on a stack of milk crates and waited for her to walk past. Now, after Todd allowed her to walk some distance ahead of him, he resumed following her, maintaining a constant distance behind her. Whenever Eurydice slowed down or stopped, he similarly slowed down or stopped. Whenever possible, he moved to the opposite side of objects which obstructed her view of him. As he did this, he would roll a cigarette in order to make his movements look innocent to casual observers. Now, Todd continued to follow Eurydice along Swanson Street, crossing Burke Street and Lonsdale Street, and still maintaining a constant distance behind her. As Eurydice approached the intersection of Swanson Street and Latrobe Street, she walked down a set of stairs which led into the Melbourne Central Shopping Centre. As Todd arrived at the stairs, Eurydice had walked around a large pillar and was walking back up the stairs onto Swanson Street. Now, Todd slowed down using the pillar as cover and let her walk ahead of him as she resumed her course north up Swanson Street. Now, when Eurydice stopped at the intersection of Latrobe and Swanson Street and waited for the lights to change, Todd stopped at a nearby pillar and rolled a cigarette. Once the lights changed and she resumed walking, he continued to follow her. When Eurydice arrived at the intersection of Swanson Street and Beckett Street, she found that pedestrian traffic was diverted to a Beckett Street due to construction works that were then being undertaken. She turned west onto that street and Todd followed her. She then turned right into Elizabeth Street and headed north with Todd still behind her. So, for anyone who knows Melbourne, you probably are following this in your mind as we go through Todd, and he's just stalking his prey. And everyone else, you can see the map. I'll flash up every now and then, and it's basically a little bit of a zigzag north to the city. So let's go on. Eurydice continued north on Elizabeth Street to the intersection of Victoria Street, opposite the Queen Victoria Market. Now, she walked between the seating area and a restaurant that was at that location. And Todd walked to the opposite side of the seating area, where again he stopped to roll a cigarette. So he then let Eurydice get a little bit ahead of him. Eurydice continued north along Elizabeth Street, crossing the intersection of Flemington Road and entering Royal Parade, Parkville. Now, Todd continued to follow her, maintaining a steady 15 to 20 seconds distance behind her. At 11:50 p.m. and 42 minutes since starting to follow her, Eurydice walked past the University of Melbourne on Royal Parade. Now, Todd was then 50 seconds behind her. Now, as she continued north, he increased his speed, and within 2 minutes, Todd had closed the time gap to only 27 seconds behind her. The CCTV footage at 11:54 p.m. from the University of Melbourne was the last footage of Eurydice seen alive. Eurydice continued to walk north along Royal Parade towards Princes Park. At 12:02 a.m. on 13th of June, she sent a message on Facebook Messenger to Tony Magnuson saying, "I'm nearly home, HBU, how about you?" Princes Park at that point comprised of 6 soccer pitches arranged in 2 rows, with 3 pitches in each row. The area was dimly lit. Having arrived at the park, Eurydice then proceeded to walk across the soccer pitches from west to east. Now, on the other side of the road from Princes Park is Melbourne Cemetery. That's quite a huge area, so it's not like there's anyone alive there that's watching. So just let you know. And it's on the photo. You can see the photo. After she had crossed 2 pitches and had just stepped onto the 3rd pitch, Todd attacked her. Now, trigger warning here, and I have cut a lot of detail out of the court records here. Todd knocked her to the ground and quickly subdued her. The degree of force that was used in his initial attack on her is evidenced by the injuries sustained by her, including a prominent bruise to the forehead with an underlying hemorrhage. Todd then sat on her chest. In the course of the attack, he ripped Eurydice's dress open to the waist and pulled down her bra, exposing her breasts. He then tore off her underpants and raped her. He attempted to rape her again, but he was unable to maintain an erection. Now, during the attack, he had at least one hand around Eurydice's throat. At some stage, he placed both his hands around her throat and compressed downwards on her windpipe with his thumbs, which cut off her airways and killed her. Eurydice was alive when the rape, attempted rape and sexual assault each occurred. Todd then left Eurydice lying on her back with her legs bent. Before leaving the scene, Todd took Eurydice's mobile phone, and after he left Princes Park, he walked to the Royal Parkway railway station, where he arrived at 2:14 a.m. He fell asleep and remained there until 4 a.m. Shortly after he awoke, he began to look through Eurydice's mobile phone. He then left and walked back to Princes Park. By the time he walked past the park, a crime scene had been established following the discovery of Eurydice's body at 2:50 a.m. by a passerby, Mr. Williams, who was walking home from work through Princes Park. Now, Mr. Williams had tried mouth-to-mouth and CPR while waiting for emergency services, but his efforts were in vain. Todd then travelled on foot and by tram along Racecourse Road to Boundary Road, North Melbourne. There he purchased a pie and coffee, after which he caught a train and then a bus, arriving at his home sometime after 6:15 a.m. Shortly after Todd arrived home, he used his iPad to conduct a Google search of the phrase Princes Park. That provided him with a number of results relating to the discovery of a woman's body in the park. He repeated the same search 5 minutes later, and then at 6:57 a.m, he conducted a Google search of the phrase strangulation and rape porn. That provided a list of websites. Now, Todd selected the first website, which provided a video entitled Strangled and Brutally Raped. He navigated through that category to a subcategory entitled Brutal Rape, Choking Till Death, Strangle, Forced Videos. And he viewed 2 pages in that search category. 3 minutes later, he visited another pornographic website where he viewed a number of pages from the homepage, conducting a search on the website for brunette-specific videos. 7:03 a.m, he conducted a Google search on the phrase curvy emo girl. He selected the first website offered, and he searched through 4 pages of porn videos that were listed on that website. During the morning and later in the afternoon, twice he Googled Princes Park to get news concerning the discovery of Eurydice's body at the park. So, I don't want to kink shame anyone here, but this Todd guy is fucking sick. A really fucking sick asshole. In the meantime, after the police had obtained copies of all the CCTV footage they could get, they identified that the person depicted in the footage to be following Eurydice, and he was connected with her death. As a consequence, excerpts of the footage were broadcast on news segments on live television. Now, a friend of Todd's who had seen one of those broadcasts contacted him and told him that his face was on the news in relation to the murder. Now, she told him that he had to go to the police or she would contact the police herself. Now, as a result, at 7:09 p.m, Todd contacted the Broadmeadows police station. He told the cop who took his call that he'd seen his image on the news, but that he wasn't involved in the death of Eurydice Dixon. He also said that he would go down to the police station. At 8:29 p.m, Todd went to Broadmeadows police station with his mum. During the interviews that were conducted that night, he gave to the police at least 3 different and conflicting accounts. He spun a farrago of lies to try and evade responsibility for what he'd done. Now, farrago, you might have to Google it, but it means a confused mixture. And yeah, I had to Google it. Anyway, at 9:15 p.m, Detective Senior Constable Mead spoke to Todd and cautioned him. Todd told Detective Mead that after he'd had a bit to drink and had some weed, he felt sick and the night became a blur. He said that he'd caught the bus towards Williamstown and then returned by train to Flinders Street. He then walked down Elizabeth Street, and because there were no trains, he fell asleep at the Royal Park railway station. When he woke up, he had messages telling him that he was on television. Following that, Detective Senior Constable Mead commenced a record of the interview with him. So, before it was just a chat, and now this is a full-on interview. Again, he was cautioned, and the interview was suspended at 10 p.m, because at 11:43 p.m, the interview recommenced with 2 detectives from the homicide squad. From the start of that interview, Todd denied any involvement in the death of Eurydice Dixon. He maintained that denial for a period of about 1 hour and 12 minutes, in which he responded to some 660 questions. During that phase of the interview, Todd told the police that because he'd missed the last train home, he started walking down Swanson Street. He said that he then diverted around roadworks to Elizabeth Street, taking breaks and catching his breath, because he just wasn't feeling well. He said that as he continued down Elizabeth Street, he asked someone, which was Eurydice, for directions, and that person told him the way to the zoo. He then said that he followed the signs to the zoo, walked on and slept at the Royal Park railway station for the night. He said that in the morning he retraced his steps to the main road and walked to Queen Victoria Market. He then made his way down Racecourse Road, got on a bus and ultimately arrived home. Now, that interview was suspended at 12:55 a.m. in order for the police to prepare documentation in relation to a request for forensic procedures from Todd. Now, Detective Sergeant Miller remained in the interview room with him, and he explained to Todd that the forensic process that would be undertaken, that would include a full examination to record his injuries, as well as comparing his DNA sample with those taken from the crime scene. Now, at that point, Todd responded, "Don't worry about the DNA. I did it. I'll tell you everything." The interview was then recommenced at 1:06 a.m. At the beginning of that part of the interview, Todd confirmed what he had said to Detective Sergeant Miller during the break. He then gave the following, the second version, to police. He said that he first saw Eurydice 5 or 10 minutes at the most before she'd reached the park. He said that he didn't cross the road purposely to get her. She just happened to be in front of him. So he asked her for directions, and then he said that because she could barely tell him which way was which, he thought that once he was off the street, he would get her bag and run off. He then followed her into the park to urinate, and he said that she looked like she was stumbling around and was not in a position to defend herself. He told police that he noticed that she was really quite intoxicated. She looked like she was on drugs. And now, this is totally untrue, by the way. There was no evidence at all that Eurydice had taken drugs or drunk alcohol on that night. The samples taken from her during the post-mortem were negative for alcohol and drugs. Anyway, Todd told them that he only wanted her wallet because he wanted a little bit of money. He said that when he went to grab her bag, she hit him and ripped his shirt. He said that he attempted to defend himself, that there was a struggle, and that they both went to the ground. He said that he didn't want to get into trouble for something as simple as a little bit of money, and so he started to choke her and didn't stop. He told police that he choked Eurydice for 5 or 10 minutes, but it could have been less than that. He said that he could have just taken her bag and run off, but with all the alcohol and drugs that he consumed, he wasn't thinking normally. He said that his sole goal was to get some money. He just wanted to leave, get home and forget. So he made his way to Royal Park Railway Station and went to sleep. Now, Detective Sergeant Miller then asked him directly, "Did you rape her?" It was only at that point that he first admitted to sexually assaulting and raping Eurydice. Now, he responded, "I attempted to, yeah, unsuccessfully." He then told police that he was sorry that he kept lying. Now, Detective Sergeant Miller asked him to give a full account of everything. And it was at this stage that he gave his third account of what had happened. Now, in that version, Todd told police that he'd asked Eurydice for directions, followed her into the park, grabbed her from behind and pulled her to the ground. And then she started to scream. He said that his intentions at that time were just to take her stuff. But then when Eurydice started screaming and she was underneath him, he thought, well, I've already taken it so far. Accordingly, he said he ripped her shirt and pants. He admitted to pulling her underwear down and choking her. He claimed that when he grabbed Eurydice and dragged her to the ground, it was not for the purpose of raping her, but that he'd made that decision once he'd pinned her underneath him. Todd told police that he'd first noticed Eurydice about 20 minutes before the incident at Flinders Street. However, he did say that he didn't have any intentions in relation to her until much later on. He told police that he'd followed her for quite a while because how she was acting. Now, the interview was suspended at 1:37 a.m. and he underwent a forensic examination. Now, subsequently, the interview recommenced at 6:06 a.m. And during that phase of the interview, when he was asked how Eurydice Dixon was strangled, he said, "It was just my 2 thumbs on the windpipe. I was over the top of her attempting to restrain her hands. I managed to get my knees up towards her shoulder in an attempt to keep her hands from hitting me." He said that he leant on Eurydice's throat with his grip strength. He said that in the course of the assault on Eurydice, he sexually assaulted her for 15 seconds. He said that he then attempted to rape Eurydice but was unsuccessful because he couldn't maintain an erection. He also continued his assault upon her. I'm just not going to tell you that bit, but he was unsuccessful. He said that Eurydice was conscious and fighting him at that point. He said that he didn't remove his hand from her throat during the whole attack. An autopsy was carried out, and the findings of the pathologist included injuries consistent with vaginal penetration. They showed blunt force injuries to the head, torso and limbs, and bruises to the right jawline, hands, right knee and leg. There was also the bruise to the forehead with the underlying hemorrhage. Now, the findings relevant to the cause of death included bruises to both sides of the neck, abrasions of the lower front of the neck, bruising to the muscles of the neck, and a hemorrhage adjacent to the left hyoid bone. Now, the cause of death was, unsurprisingly, found to be compression of the neck causing asphyxiation or possible reflex cardiac arrest. Now, swabs were taken during the autopsy. They were submitted for analysis. Semen was detected on a swab from a perineum and from 2 areas on the front of Eurydice's dress. Now, DNA analysis established effectively that James Todd was the contributor of that semen. So, Islanders, what an absolute waste of life. Not only the senseless rape and murder of an innocent young woman just walking home at night from doing something she loves so much, but also the senseless waste of life which is James Todd, just a piece of shit human being that decided to take out his perversions in real life. A psychological examination of Todd over many months revealed that he increasingly searched for and consumed ultra-hardcore rape and snuff porn. Also, Todd had active sexual fantasies which involved him having rough, non-consensual sex with women, which became more consistent with the extreme violent pornography that he was viewing on the internet. He told the shrinks that over that period, his sexual fantasies became increasingly dark and that he had invested a lot of time and emotion into those fantasies, in which he was always in control and which the other person was always female and always ended up deceased. It was also found that Todd had previously searched out rape porn involving women that had a goth style, which you could say was similar to Eurydice Dixon's style. Well, Todd went on to trial and pleaded guilty to all charges: rape, attempted rape, sexual assault and murder. I'll read out some of the judge's summary before he was sentenced. The judge said the offences committed by you of murder and rape, and indeed attempted rape and sexual assault, were most serious. In particular, I'm satisfied that the offence of murder committed by you was well above what could be described as the middle range of seriousness of murder offences, taking into account only the objective factors regarding your offending. I've reached that conclusion for the following reasons. 1. The murder committed by you was not spontaneous. Throughout the period in which you trailed behind her on her way to Princes Park, you were seriously contemplating and indeed obsessed with the thought of raping and choking her to death. During the whole of that period, you had ample opportunity to come to your senses, to desist from following her, and to prevent the happening of the dreadful events that ensued. 2. At the time you attacked, raped and killed her, Eurydice Dixon was totally vulnerable, defenceless and helpless. You set upon her after she'd crossed 2 soccer fields, so that you were well secluded from the view of any person who might be passing along Royal Parade. You had the advantage of surprise, and it would seem quite clearly from what occurred, superior strength. 3. The murder by you of Eurydice occurred in the context of the events that immediately preceded it, namely the rape, attempted rape and sexual assault that you'd committed on her. 4. The method by which you murdered Eurydice was appalling. The act of choking her to death so that she suffocated was callous, cruel and brutal. 5. Your actions in the period that followed the murder aggravated the objective seriousness of your offending. There's no evidence that the vicious acts by which you'd raped and murdered your victim troubled your conscience at all. Rather, you used Eurydice's mobile phone, slept and ate, and accessed pornographic websites, including websites of videos that involved acts of brutal rape culminating in the death of a victim by strangulation. In the immediate aftermath of your offending, you had an entire and utter lack of concern for what you'd done to an innocent and decent young woman. Hear, hear. I'd hate to be in that judge's... I'd hate to have him from a principal in my school, I can tell you. So, on charge 1, which was rape, he was sentenced to 11 years. Charge 2, attempted rape, he was sentenced to 7 years. Charge 3, sexual assault, he was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. And on charge 4, which was murder charge, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. He would serve all sentences concurrently, so his total effective sentence is life imprisonment. Now, the judge directed that he serve a minimum of 35 years before he would be eligible for parole. Some would say maybe just chuck another 20 on that. That's probably fair. Now, Tony Magnuson, Eurydice's boyfriend at the time, said that night she was in high spirits following a successful performance of a new comedy routine at the CBD's Highlander Bar. They had a knock-off drink before leaving the venue at around 10:40 p.m, grabbing some food at a nearby store and then heading home. He said she was happy and content. She gave me a hug, blew me a kiss and said she was going for a walk. She was on top of the world because her gig went so well. Again, the people with the real life sentence are Eurydice's friends and family. They may get justice in a court seeing him go away for 35 years, but they will still bear the scars of James Todd's actions. But wait, that's not the only thing that was fucked up about this case. An impromptu memorial was established on the sports oval at Princes Park, close to where Eurydice had been raped and murdered. Many people left flowers and wreaths at the memorial site, which was featured in pieces by electronic and print media. Moreover, a vigil had been organised to be held at the memorial site on Monday, the 18th of June 2018 at 5:30 p.m. Now, that was only 5 days after her murder. The forthcoming vigil was widely publicised, including social media. Now, at about 2:30 a.m. on the 18th of June, that's just the morning before this was going to happen, Andrew Nolch drove his vehicle to the site of the memorial. On the grass directly in front of the memorial, Nolch painted a picture of a penis. The painted penis was 25 metres by 5 metres in dimension and was depicted to be ejaculating directly onto the memorial. Now, Nolch said that he had no permission to enter the memorial site and paint a penis onto the grass. So this fuckwit does this just hours before Eurydice's vigil was due to start. I mean, what an absolute piece of shit. What is wrong with people? Well, he was caught and pled guilty to the charge of damaging property. The magistrate put him on a community correction order, a CCO, for 18 months duration with conditions that he perform 200 hours of community work, that he be under the supervision of the secretary, and that he undergo a men's behaviour change or other offender behaviour program as directed. Now, he was also ordered to pay $5,500 compensation to the Metropolitan Fire Brigade and $14,000 to the City of Melbourne. Yeah, well, he didn't do any of that, anything that was required of him. He instead went to Thailand and the Philippines. So he ended up getting locked up when he came back for 5 months on the initial charge of damaging property and 14 days on the charge of contravening the CCO. His defence was that he was just being a dickhead. Yeah, mate, we know you're a fucking dickhead. Well, Islanders, another case to give you the rage. You know, Todd, other than the issues he had at school, basically he had no criminal record. So at 19 years of age, he's found himself inside for life. Now, how does society protect themselves from these types? Eurydice took a lot of precautions to try and stay safe, but when you have scum like Todd around, that's just not enough. He stalked her, followed her for nearly an hour before he cowardly attacked her when he knew there would be no one around to see him. Now, well, CCTV from numerous locations along the way, that was watching. Not that it helped Eurydice. Now, thoughts go out to all her family and friends. Okay, Islanders, that's it for another week. The end of another episode. Now, if you want to support the island, there are links in the description for Patreon, PayPal and merch. Please feel free to comment, like and subscribe. I would truly appreciate if you share the channel. Hit the bell to be notified because I don't bleep anything out and I use words like murder and all that, which just don't happen on the YouTube algorithm. And so the YouTube gods aren't going to do anything for me, not like Micah Stalker. We'll talk about them later. Anyway, So yeah, your subscription and sharing, really appreciated on getting more people aboard. Again, subscribe. Now that's what I've got to tell you about, is that we had a winner on the 1,000 sub giveaway for the t-shirt, and that went to Dan Robinson. He was one of the first subscribers, actually. I've already been in contact with him, sent him out a nice shirt, so good on it. So that's about it. I've been your host, Cambo. You've been watching True Crime Island, and as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. Good night. Boom fuckalunga.